I'm still the same.
All right.
Started with David.
Okay. Mike, David Moore, Dallas Morning News. You start by talking about what attracted you to Mike Zimmer and what you expect him to do with this defense from what's in place.
Well, I've always had such great respect for Mike. You know, we've competed against each other so many times over the years. I mean, even going back to New Orleans when Mike was coordinating here in Dallas, and obviously our time in the NFC North. So, really just going through the whole process, post, announcement of Dan getting the Washington job. We kind of had two buckets that we looked at as far as individuals that were tied to the existing defense, and then looking at former head coaches with something that, if you points to my history is a preference that I feel is very important. And then having a chance to sit down and talk to Mike, and and I'll let him talk about his time off and so forth. But I just think it's an incredible fit for us.
Is that the other point, especially now that you're a play caller as well, the comfort you have with Mike having been a head coach before and just turning over that side to him?
Definitely. I mean, I think there's just so many things that go on, even more so today than back in 06 when it's my head coaching career started, that you have to do. And I think if you are going to, there's only so many minutes, so many hours in a day. I know as a head coach you're responsible for everything, but the reality is you can't be everywhere. And so I think the importance of the leadership role on defense, outside of scheme, calling games, and coaching players, there's so much more that goes on as far as the assistant coaches, and I think it's important. And obviously Mike's experience and success that he's had at every level is, once again, just makes this a great fit.
Zim, Clarence Hill, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. How does it feel to be back, and did you ever expect to come back?
It feels outstanding. I mean, I got two grandkids, twins that my daughter has. I'm excited to be around a little bit more. I've always loved Dallas. I've always loved the Cowboys. I've had a chance, a lot of times, Mike and I were on a committee together, so we were able to kind of talk away from football. Back in the day, we were on the John Madden committee. And then, did I ever think I'd be back? I don't know. I always kind of hoped I would be. When my time was off, I'd had some phone calls of going places, and I wanted to be somewhere where I knew people and I trusted people. And so when this opportunity came up, I was excited because the relationship I had with Mike, and even the conversations that we've had since I've been here, telling stories about when we played up in Green Bay or they played in Minnesota, and then with Jerry and Steven and those things. But I've had such great respect. I actually told him the same thing. When I was in NFC North, he was the one I respected the most. They were the best team. They were the most well coached. Their teams played the right way, and so we tried to emulate a lot of those things, and so that we could hopefully compete against them.
So there was never thought of retirement or anything like that after Minnesota?
No, not really. Sometimes it's forced retirement, but it's more about getting the right situation for you. Like I said before, I had other opportunities that I could have taken, but I wasn't going to go somewhere that I didn't feel comfortable with the organization and the people there.
Mike, Todd Archer with ESPN. What do you think of the pieces that you have available to you here on this defense, and how can you make this defense better than what it's been?
Yeah, well, hopefully I can. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, they've been pretty good. I know there's been some situations where things haven't happened, but that happens in coaching. It happens a lot. So we're going to look at the players, try and figure out the best way to use them, put the scheme together, and again, we want to take the good things that they've done and maybe add a few more other things that we've done good in the past, and try to make this thing manageable where, we're disciplined and we're, well coached. We're play together as a team. We try to make sure everybody understands their role so that other people on the field can have success doing their job.
John. John Machota with The Athletic. Specifically, though, with Micah Parsons, what have you thought of him as a player, and does he kind of remind you of any other players you've worked with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a terrific player. You know, you watch him on tape, and he makes some unbelievably athletic plays. You know, at this point in stage right now, I'm trying to figure out, get the coaches in here, and then we can sit down. And I think one of the strengths that I've always had is to look at players and kind of have a vision for each player, and then try to figure out how we can use them in the best way. One of the things I would hate to do right now is to tell you how I'm thinking about playing him without talking to him and letting him think, okay, this is what we're thinking about doing with you, Micah. I don't think I should tell you guys first before I tell him, if that's.
Yeah. And then I was just going to ask you, is there anything that maybe stood out to you the last couple of years that maybe you missed about the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, you always miss football. I mean, you miss coaching, you miss the relationship with the players, you miss relationship with the coaches. You know, I have, you know, I probably need a little time off just because of some of the things that happened with my family. And, you know, that was important to me, to take some time to help the rest of my family in some of those situations too. So, you know, but at the end of the day, it draws back in. You know, my dad was a high school coach for 30-some years, and, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm excited to try to get where I can try to help players be better, and teams to be better, and groups to be better. That's what I try to do. You know, I try to coach every position. I try to show them why it's important to them, and you know, and it gets me excited when I can see other players improve, and even if it's just a little bit, improve at one thing or improve at another thing, or how we can all get better together.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Coach McCarthy was away. He went in the lab and looked at a lot of different things. Did you do anything similar to what he did when he was away?
Well, I did some of that. You know, a lot of it I did a lot of reflection on what my time in Minnesota, you know, the 8 years, the things that I felt like we did good, the things that I felt like I didn't do as good, trying to figure out, you know, how I can be a better coach in the future. Obviously, there was always some tape watching and things like that. Marvin Lewis and I was a great friend. You know, we did a podcast, and then afterwards we'd sit on there and we'd watch tape together and talk about players and talk about schemes and things like that. But a lot of it was reflection on you know, what I did well and what I didn't do well.
Saudis, The Athletic. Mike, when you kind of look at the way I know you haven't been out that long, but when you look at just the way offenses evolve constantly in the NFL, whether it's, you know, the McVays and Shanahans and all that stuff, where have you kind of seen the NFL offenses go, and how do you kind of see your defense fitting?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of different kind of scheme things that, you know, you're starting to see a lot more of the receiver outside motion and with speed going up the field. You're seeing, obviously in the last few years, there's been a lot of the jet sweeps and rocket motions and things like that. So I think that's been a lot of it. You know, we've all talked about the different ways to handle it, and you know, football is an evolving game, whether it's offense or defense, and so it all kind of comes back. You know, the defense catches up, then the offense catches up, and it just kind of goes from there. So without being too specific, I know I'm not, but you know, we'll have ways to combat these things.
Just curious about your thoughts on Al Harris and kind of, you know, as you're putting the staff together, how he kind of fits in.
Yeah, I had a good visit with Al and the rest of the coaches here, and you know, it's up to. Obviously, Mike has made the decision that, you know, these guys are going to be here, and so we had a good conversation that that he's going to still be here with us, and I'm excited to work with him. And you know, I've heard a lot of great things about the work that he does, and really all the guys here.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Mike, you came up as a defensive backs position coach. What are your thoughts on coaching Deron Bland coming off his historic year and Trayvon Diggs coming off his ACL injury?
Yeah, well, I'm always excited to coach with good players and good defensive backs. You know, it's kind of was my, as you said, my baby coming up. I love the technical aspect of that position. I know you guys that were here 18 years ago. When I was, you probably saw some of that stuff when I was here. But footwork, technique, hand placement, getting out of the break, shoulder level, all those things. And so, those two guys. Obviously, I've never worked with them, so I don't know. I've only seen them on tape. But hopefully, we can continue to get them better. I know, obviously, I've watched some of those guys on tape.
Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com.
Are we gonna let Mike answer?
You're doing a hell of a job. Keep it up.
I'll leave you into this one, Mike. Talking about you're looking for the right opportunity to be able to come back to football, being able to link back up with McCarthy and the Joneses. What about those conversations last week and even into the weekend led you to believe that this is the right opportunity for you?
Well, I knew right away it was the right opportunity. There was another club talking to me, and but this was where I wanted to come. And Mike and I had some great conversations on the phone. We had some great conversations, and since I've been here, and and I've always been comfortable with Stephen and Jerry. They've been outstanding to my family, ever since, when I was here way back when. And so there was never a question of whether or not I wanted to be here at all. I probably couldn't think of the 32 teams more than one that I really wanted to be at.
And then, Mike, what are some memories you have from the NFC North days? Is there anything that was talked about last week in passing as kind of a fun memory?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you remember plays and games, but, I think if you would ask anybody during my time in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, the whole staff and so forth, Mike was always the toughest to play against. And I think anytime the division games are the hardest, clearly, but they're always extra tough against Mike, particularly, just the way he would lay out the defense, the change-up calls, and, a lot of things in football. Everybody has a menu of things you look at, but, he has a great fastball, great curveball, and a sweet change-up. So that's the way I look at it.
Jeff Cole with Fox 4. Mike, welcome back. Two questions for you. You spent some time at the college level the last 2 years. Can you talk about your connection with Deion and what your style is for connecting with young players today?
Yeah, well, first thing is that, Deion and I connected here many years ago. I didn't know him at all. The first time I met him, he basically had an entourage with him, and the change and all the stuff, and we've become unbelievably great friends. I haven't spent as much time at Jackson State in Colorado as people think. Quite honestly, I was at Jackson State 2 days, and I have never been to Colorado. But we talk on the phone a lot. He asks me a lot of questions about coaching and coaches and coaching and different things. But so. And as far as the second question, there's a reputation out there that I'm a jerk or something like that, which, hey, it is what it is, I guess. But since it was announced that I was going to be here, I've heard from so many players that played for me. Players here, not just defensive backs, but linebackers and defensive linemen, texted me and said how happy they are for me. And I think if I was such a jerk, I wouldn't be hearing from those guys.
And secondly, you were part of the last...
I thought that was two questions.
It's supposed to be one. One more quick one. You were part of the last Super Bowl title here. What are your favorite memories from that and appreciation for what that meant?
Well, it's hard. I mean, it was hard. We had, I remember Kevin Williams had to catch a 3rd and 12 or something in order for us to beat the Giants to win the division, and we weren't playing great there at the end. And I used to tell this story to my team all the time. We go out there and we go out to Arizona. I think we play Arizona, and we're flying out there, and San Francisco gets beat the day before, and the mood of the team just completely changed. And we got Arizona because we knew if we won, we were gonna have home field advantage. We go out there and we beat the dog out of them, and from there it was, nice and easy the rest of the way. But, you know, I was a little worried when Pittsburgh onside kicked there a little bit and got, I think it was the start of the second half and got it. But, you know, that's so much about the mentality of football teams, you know, of just how you're thinking. But, you know, I'm not sure we would have won the Super Bowl then that year if those kind of things didn't happen toward the end of the year. And, you know, obviously it's a great feeling when you win. And, you know, Mike's won it too, so he can talk about that.
Brad Sham, Cowboys Radio. Zim, let's go back to even when you first went to Minnesota. The young men coming into the league as players, how are they different, the kids who come into the league now compared to back then?
You know, I think, Brad, the biggest thing is the ones that want to be great, they want to be coached. You know, they want to be coached. Now, you know, there's a lot more social media. There's a lot more of the outside stuff going on. But, you know, the ones that I've been around, the young guys, the ones that want to be great, they want to be coached. They want to study. They want to understand, you know, how they can get better. And to me, that's what all the great players, they want to know, how can you make me better? And, you know, so I think, you know, and y'all had Anthony Barr here. I love Anthony Barr. You know, he was a little hurt when you know, playing here, but, you know, he was a young guy and he was terrific, great leader, studied, did all the things. And, you know, so we had a lot of guys like that come in there. Now, I coached the Polynesian Bowl high school all-star game a couple weeks ago, and now those guys were dancing between plays, and they had the attention span of about 2 seconds. But you know, I think great players want to be great.
Mike, which of your current players do you have the kind of relationship with that they could come up and hit you on the sideline like Kelsey did, and everything would be fine?
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Brad. I mean, I don't know what. No, I think just like anything. I mean, you know, I just think sometimes those guys forget how strong they are. You know, but yeah, I've been punched, I've been pushed, and I think it's just part of that relationship.
Hey, Mike, Pat Doney with NBC here in Dallas. You were talking about the players you coached clearly not thinking you're a jerk in your style, but it was Darren Woodson who was at the Super Bowl, your biggest cheerleader, talking about how hard you coached, but the impact you made on him. Those players from those teams, I mean, what's the relationship like? We heard you mention Dion and what he did for you the last couple of years too. How much do you appreciate the relationship with those Cowboys great players that you're now part of this organization again?
No, it's everything. You know, I think that's part of the reason why you coach, is to try to develop players and then develop a relationship with them, and then hopefully someday they appreciate what you've helped them do. You know, the coaches can't play for them, obviously, but you know, maybe you can help them get a little bit better. You know, Charlie Williams called me the other day. You know, which you know, Charlie, he had a nickname that I can't say here, but but you know, I mean, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, that when you hear from these guys and they call you from, you know, and I've had several Minnesota players call me as well. I think that's it makes you feel good because you know they think about you and they appreciate you.
And then he said that your style is to not be someone who is your friend, is to get the best out of you. How would you describe your coaching style? Has it evolved at all over the years, or are you still the same guy you've been your entire career?
Well, I think these guys that have been here saw me 18 years ago. They've evolved. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sitting there. And I think I've evolved too, or otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. But you know, I'm demanding. I try to get the best out of the players. But you know, to me, there's a difference. You know, I had one player who was a terrific player, and you could not yell at him. You had to put your arm around him. You had to talk to him, whisper. He didn't like to be reprimanded in front of people. And so that's what I did with him, and he became a terrific player. Other players, you know, I'd get after, and, you know, probably know some of the names. One of them was here. But like I'll say it to him, Pac-Man Jones, right? He gives me the biggest hugs now when I see him. But you know, we've had our issues, you know, going back and forth, and you know, I think everybody's different. You try to hit the button, however it is to make them better.
Got it. Kevin Sherrington, Dallas Morning News. You talked about how you evolved, obviously, as everybody else has. What has not changed about you since you were here last time?
Competitiveness, probably being technique oriented, being fundamental, disciplined. Those are the kind of things that kind of get me grouchy.
Ed Werder, ESPN. If each of you could address when Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator, obviously created a great emphasis on turnovers and defensive touchdowns, and you guys dominated that statistic across all 3 years. Does that approach continue here, or do you have to give up something there to be more sound and play, defense against the run and so forth, areas which have been weakness in recent years?
I mean, I don't think so. I think every coach is trying to win the turnover battle. I know that's been, my personal history as an assistant and as a head coach. So how you train it, I think it's like everything in this game. Mike's talked a lot about technique and fundamentals, and your ROI usually speaks to the energy and what you put into it. But with that, it's also we're aware of the discipline things that we need to be better at. But I don't think that takes away from our ability to take care of the football and take the ball away.
How big a point of emphasis is that for you?
Well, it's always a point of emphasis, and I do think if you look at turnovers, typically they come from quarterback hits, overthrows, things like that, where quarterbacks make the wrong reads. You knock the ball out of somebody's hands because you're physical. I think all those things kind of incorporate all those things, and if you have, in my opinion, I've always felt like you have to be fundamentally sound to get to the football in the right way, and then once you get there, then now it's doing that, and then if you never hit the quarterback, you're not going to get turnovers. So obviously we're always going to try and hit the quarterback.
Joe Tragan, WFAA. I got one for each, Mike. Zim, I'll start with you. You mentioned how some of these players have reached out to you. Were there some of those players who maybe had to mature a little bit before they understood what you did for them when they were players, and if so, what did they say they figured out or understood?
Yeah, so I'll give you a good example. Xavier Rhodes called me probably 5 months ago, and I was on his rear end every day about being disciplined, getting in the right footwork, all this stuff. He became a terrific player, and he called me and he just said, "Coach, I know how hard you were on me, but I appreciate what you've done for me and the family and the things like that." And I mean, you hear that, there's a, I probably was too hard on a lot of players, but I've heard it several times, and so I think that's it makes you feel good that they understand that you're just trying to help them. You're not just out to be a mean guy or something like that. So.
And then, Mike, for you, Jerry talked about being all in. Can you give us your description of what being all in would mean for this organization?
For the organization? Yeah. I'm just trying to get coaching staff hired right now. No, I think with that, obviously we've had some really good teams in the last couple of years. We're disappointed that we haven't reached the ultimate goal, but yeah, I think it's just identifying the fact that it's important to go back and start with the basics, and that starts with player acquisition, and ability to get the new staff and get the personnel guys in the same room next week, and just make sure we just stay on point and do the things we need to do to make sure that we're winning, and building that confidence and the things you need to do when it comes down to the stretch, in the playoffs, and win and and win playoff games and win championships. So, but as far as everything else, that's the way I took it.
Mike McCarthy, Dallas Morning News, for Zimmer. What needs to be done in the months ahead to get this run defense to where you want it needs to be, and how will your philosophies guide that? Well,
we got to get the staff together first, and then we got to go through the film. We got I hate saying process all the time, but there's a process about getting all the. First off, we got to get all the coaches on the same page. We got to speak the same language so the players can speak the same language. So when they come off the field, they speak the same language to me, and because they say, "Oh, this guy did this or that guy did that," and I don't understand what they're saying. So we got to get the communication down first, the techniques down second. We got to make sure that we figure out where the personnel is and put them in the right place, and then get them coached up and let them go. It's too early. I've been here a day and a half now, so it's too early to know a lot of the things that we have to do. But that's kind of the routine that we're going to go through here.
Christy Scales, 105.3 The Fan, Cowboys Radio.
Hi, Christy.
How much of the appeal of this opportunity coming back as coordinator is the fact that you do get to just concentrate on the defense and your thing and not all of those responsibilities that Mike was talking about before as head coach?
Yeah, I think that's some of it, but it's about the opportunity to work with Mike and the opportunity to be here with the Cowboys and the organization. Like I said, Jerry's been great. Steven's a great friend, but the lure was really the football team and Mike, and so I think that was the most important thing. The one good thing about it is I don't have to do these media press conferences every single day anymore, so which is okay with me.
He wanted to do it by himself, so I think he's pulling your leg a little bit here.
Mike, Joe Witt was with you for a long time. Was that a difficult conversation to have, to say that he was not going to be the guy here before he moved on to Washington, or how did that all play out?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, there's a lot of things that went into, this hiring process, just like any process too. There's a timeline. Obviously Dan was the last guy hired in the cycle. So, and then with that, we wanted to go through a thorough process, and in the timing and the opportunity, frankly, knowing Joe and Erica for the amount of time that I have known them and had a lot of great years together, I think he has a great opportunity in Washington. So, but we wanted to go through a thorough process, and that led us to hiring Mike.
And to fill out the rest of the staff, how long do you guys anticipate that being able to go with a lot of jobs being filled already and people available?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Obviously it's just like any process. There's a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversation. So we're going to be diligent and make sure we're thorough in this process too. So I don't have a timeline, Todd.
This is for both of you, different questions. Mike, back on the topic of whether or not Zim's a jerk. You were.
Gee, be subtle, would you?
In putting together a staff, people always talk about putting together a team, but in putting together a staff, how important is it for everyone to have this shared vision, but you want different personalities because players react to people differently, and you want to have them be able to go to different people for different things?
Well, Mike brings so much to the table, and I think the fact that he's older than me was probably number one. No, and I think too, I think as a coach, and I think you have to establish this at a young age, and because being fortunate to be in the NFL, and I know Mike has seen this too because we've had some conversations about it. Is the players are different. Society's different. We both have children. He has grandchildren. I have teenagers. So. But I think as a coach, you clearly got to decide, is it most important to be loved or respected? And I've always taken the approach that it is important to be respected, before love. And I think the love comes later because, I've found that in my career that, guys probably really don't appreciate you until after the fact more. And that's fine. That's life. But we're all here to win a championship, do a job, and so forth and so forth. So, but I forgot what your question was.
No, just the different personalities and just being able
so. I think I was trying to give you a filibuster. Mike needed a break. He's kicking me under the table here, but
I was just going to say amen to what you just said. I thought it was great. Yeah.
No, So no, personalities are very important, and I do think, and with his experience, the way he came into the league, his father being a high school coach, those things all very appealing to me. His work ethic, and having a mutual friend in Marvin Lewis, and just the people that you really trust in this business, having personal experience. I think Mike I don't know if I've called many games against another coordinator in my time in the league too. So all that's important. But the next part is make sure they fit with him in the defensive room, and we still have a couple things on offense too. So you're always looking to do that. But I think it's very important that you choose respect over love. It's nice to be loved all the time, but at the end of the day, it's respect has to be first. We have one rule in our football operations, and that's no disrespect, and that covers everything. Be on time. Talk to people the way you want to be talked to, treat others the way you want to be treated. So, and that's just something I've always tried to live by, especially as a coach.
And Mike, you were saying earlier too about you're not going to reinvent the wheel, understanding the staff not set yet, you have all the personnel meetings, but in general, do you have an idea of kind of what percentage makes sense to incorporate and change going into this off season, or is that to be determined?
Well, we have, I don't know about percentage, but Mike and I have talked about things he'd like to see a little bit different, and I've talked to him about things that we've done in the past, and so I think once we kind of iron things out, at the end of the day, honestly, David, it's about what can the players do. We can be the smartest guys in the world, but if the players can't do what we're asking them to do, then we're not very smart. So I've always felt like, ideas are great and all that, but okay, what can they do? What can they do, and how proficiently can they do it? Thanks for calling me a jerk, by the way. I'll get him back.
I'm not gonna be confused with the Mike and Mike. You're Zimmer in this one. But you were here with the Cowboys last won a title, and obviously you talked about coming back, relationship with Mike and being comfortable with Jerry and Steven. How much is winning again and winning that Super Bowl again the reason why you're back?
There's no other reason. My grandkids are fine and all that, but I can see them anytime. But I didn't come here to do all the work that we need to do if we're not trying to win a championship. And that won 12 games in 3 straight years. They're on the cusp. I think they've done a great job with the personnel on the team. They've got good coaching staff, and I'm just hoping that I can help a little bit, and we can get the players better. But that's the number one goal. I didn't come. Okay, let's be average this year. No.
Mike, speaking of players and stuff, just as a defensive coordinator, how important is it for you as you go into free agency and the draft to have the say in the kind of players that you want to have your imprint on the defense and what kind of style you want to play?
The one great thing about here, even when I was here a long time ago and talking to Mike how it is here, the coaches have a lot of input, and so you can give, we can communicate with Jerry about the things that we're looking for. Can you always get them? No, but it's important. Can we get this player a little bit better? Can we get this player a little bit better? And so it's nice to have the every pick that you want, but it doesn't work that way. There's offensive guys that have to get picked, and there's defensive guys and guys that aren't in the draft. So we just try to put together the best team we possibly can.
You talked about the process of getting this job and everything. Just I think reports started coming out on Thursday that things were closed. Just what were these last few days like for you in closing the deal, and kind of what happened there?
Yeah, well, my daughter who lives with me was throwing up for 3 days, and she got me sick, so I was in bed for a couple days, and then the Super Bowl was going on, so we kind of really just slow played it and kind of went from there. So it wasn't any intense negotiations or anything like that. I knew I wanted to be here. I knew they wanted me to be here, and I was told by, oops, sorry. somebody calling for a job. It really was. Yeah, it really was. But we knew we would get it. I was told we were going to get this thing done anyway, so it wasn't any big deal.
So when did you see Rex Ryan's comments, and was there anything?
I see a lot of Rex Ryan comments.
Jeff.
Jessica Mars, DallasCowboys.com. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you.
I'm curious to how much of the Cowboys you saw last season specifically, and what jumps out for you now that you get to work with that excites you.
Well, I've obviously watched a lot of games, but I watched several games on tape. I don't know, maybe half the season or something like that. Just kind of trying to get a feel of the players and things. But obviously offense is best in the NFL, which I'm not sure I ever had that before. So keep that up, would you? And then defensively, I got some terrific players. I watched a lot of these guys, and and you watch the excitement. The fans in Dallas. I know they live and die with the Cowboys, but everybody loves the Dallas Cowboys, these fans, and that's part of the draw too, is to be excited about having such outstanding loyal fans that live and die with you every Sunday.
Alrighty, thank you all.
All right, thank you.